Winston-Salem just approved funding for a $500 million with a B dollar project that's either going to completely transform the Wake Forest area or become one of the biggest development mistakes in the city's history. There's really no in between with a project this big. I've been a realtor here in Winston-Salem for over 17 years, and I've been watching this development unfold for months now. So today, I'm breaking down everything you need to know about the grounds, what's actually being built, where the money's coming from, and how to tell if this thing's gonna succeed or fail spectacularly. What is the grounds? Let me start off with the basics. The grounds is a 100-acre mixed-use entertainment district being built in the Deacon Boulevard area, right smack in the middle of the Wake Forest athletic venues. We're talking about the area surrounding Lawrence Joel Coliseum, a Legacy Stadium, David F. Couch Ballpark, Wake Forest Tennis Center, and the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds. Right now, it's mostly just parking lots. See, that's the problem they're trying to solve. The area's already got around 750,000 visitors a year for games and events, but it's completely dead the other 300 or so days of the year. So just acres and acres of asphalt. The vision is to turn this into a year-round live-work play hub. Restaurants, shops, apartments, offices, green spaces, all connected by pedestrian trails. Think of it like the Battery, Atlanta, that mixed-use district they built around the Brave Stadium. Same playbook, Winston-Salem version. And I'm going to show you exactly how much public funding is going into this thing and why residents showed up to city council meetings asking some pretty tough questions. Stick around. Now, here's what makes this interesting. The developers behind this are Carter and Front Street Capital. Carter's the national firm that actually built the Battery in Atlanta and the banks in Cincinnati, the mixed-use development around the Reds and Bengals stadiums. They've done this before, and they've done it quite successfully. Front Street Capital is the local Winston-Salem firm that did Bailey South in the Innovation Quarter. So they know how to execute here too, and Wake Forest University owns the land. This is institution-owned property that's been sitting underutilized for decades, and the university's enlisted these developers to transform it into something that benefits both the school and the city. Here's my take on this part. Carter has the playbook. The question isn't whether they know how to build this kind of district. Well, they've already proven they can. The question is whether Winston-Salem can support it. That question becomes a lot clearer once you see what's actually going up. Quick note before we move on. If you're watching whether to buy near the grounds right now or wait to see how Phase 1 plays out, I help position people strategically in Winston-Salem's shifting market every day. All of my contact is right here in the description. Okay, enough selling, let's get back to it. So what's actually being built? So Phase 1 is opening summer of 2027, and the scope is massive. Here's what's included. First, Creekside Apartments. This is a 229-unit, 521-bed designed specifically for upperclassmen and graduate students. Construction started in 2025, and every bedroom gets a private bathroom, which is pretty huge for student housing. There's a clubhouse with study rooms, a 24/7 fitness center, outdoor pool, entertainment areas, basically everything you'd expect from high-end student living. And it sits right on the restored area with direct access to campus. Next is the retail village, 42,000 square feet of restaurants, shops, arranged around a central lawn and plaza. This is the heart of the project, where people gather on event days and hopefully on just a random Tuesday too. That's the whole ballgame right there. If this retail fills up with good tenants and stays busy year-round, the project success. If it sits empty most of the week, we got a problem. Then there's 25 condos sitting above the retail village. These are positioned as ownership opportunities for young professionals, alumni, or frankly anyone who wants to live in a walkable entertainment district steps from Wake Forest venues. And then there's the 130,000 square foot Class A office building with Wake Forest University as the anchor tenant. That's important because it puts office workers in the district Monday through Friday, giving the restaurants a weekday customer base beyond just the event evenings. They're also completely restoring Silas Creek, transforming it from a degraded drainage channel into an actual amenity with multi-use trails and a public green space. They're redesigning Deacon Boulevard, closing it between University Parkway and Piccolo Drive, reducing it from 4 lanes to 2, and expanding sidewalks and crosswalks, adding lighting, and creating a flex space for pedestrian-only events. This is a big shift from a very car-dependent sprawl to pedestrian-first urban design. Infrastructure work should be done by early 2026, which sets the stage for the vertical building to go after that. See, future phases are on the table, potentially a hotel, more residential, additional retail, but timing depends entirely on how phase 1 performs. Here's what's making the grounds different from your typical power center. It's pedestrian first by design. Most suburban developments are built around parking lots and drive-up access. This one's built around trails, plazas, and walkable streets. It has a built-in customer base from the existing venues, Wake Forest games, fairground events, concerts at the Coliseum. See, that's already happening. The grounds is adding the infrastructure to capture that traffic and keep people there afterwards. And it's targeting mixed-user housing, students in Creekside, young professionals on the condos, and potentially families or empty nesters in the future phases. That diversity makes all the difference for long-term stability. But here's where things get a little controversial, and that brings us to the money. All right, here's where it gets a little messy. Let's talk about the money. Total project costs at full build-out is around $500 million. That's across all phases. So phase 1 alone is somewhere between $215 and $250 million, depending on which part of the project you're counting. Here's how it's being funded. The state of North Carolina gave them a $35 million grant for infrastructure. That's money already in. Winston-Salem approved an additional $4 million in September of 2025 for infrastructure improvements. Forsyth County is being asked for another $4 million, which is still pending. Keep this funding breakdown in mind because later on, I'll show you why half the city thinks this is brilliant and the other half thinks it's just moving money around without creating anything new. Stay with me. Now, you're looking at $43 million in public money if the county approves their request. The rest, somewhere around $170 million to $207 million, is coming from private investment by Carter, Front Street Capital, and their partners. But here's where the controversy starts. The city council meeting where they approved the $4 million, residents showed up and asked pretty straightforward questions. Why are we using public tax dollars to subsidize private developers when other parts of the city need infrastructure? Fair question, honestly. Some folks pointed out the downtown restaurants are still recovering from COVID, and now the city's funding a complete entertainment district that could pull customers away from that. Others noted that the infrastructure budget ended up being about $20 million higher than the original state grant, which made it look like the project underestimated costs, and then they came back asking for more public money. Here's the developer's response. They say the state grant was awarded before the full scope was finalized, so the additional city and county asks aren't cost overruns, they're funding an expanded project. So city officials argue that the redeveloping 100 acres of underutilized parking lots into dense mixed-use district will significantly increase the tax base over the long term and generate more public services. And the partnership points to the fact that 750,000 people already visit the area every year for events. So this isn't creating demand from scratch, it's capturing existing traffic. Here's my take. If downtown Winston-Salem was struggling, I'd be more worried about competition. But downtown's doing pretty well. With the Innovation Corridor expansion and the residential towers, the real question is whether the grounds attracts new people to Winston-Salem who wouldn't have come otherwise, or if it's just redistributing existing spending. If it's the first scenario, it's a net positive for the city. If it's the second, somebody loses, and we'll have to see how this plays out. But before we get into the long-term impact on the city, let me tell you who should actually be considering properties near this thing. So let's talk about who this makes sense for, because this isn't a buy anywhere near it and win situation. You've got to be strategic. Perfect buyers for properties near the grounds include young professionals working at Wake Forest or the Innovation Quarter, Wake Forest School of Medicine, Atrium Wake Forest Baptist Hospital, obviously, and companies like Inmar Intelligence are all major employers pulling in younger workers who value walkability and amenities. See, the grounds fits that demographic to a T. Wake Forest alumni who want to stay connected to campus, the for sale lofts, and future hospitality components are being marketed directly to Demon Deacon grads who want a low-maintenance home base near their alma mater. Students and parents buying investment properties. Creekside is designed for upperclassmen and grad students, but there's going to be demand for student housing in the broader area. And if you're a parent considering buying a condo or a small house for your kid to live during school, proximity to the grounds becomes a selling point. Empty nesters looking for low maintenance, walkable urban living. Not everyone wants a big yard and a quiet cul-de-sac. Some retirees and empty nesters, well, they want activity, walkability, and easy access to restaurants and entertainment. And the grounds? I think the grounds is going to deliver that. Now, here's who this is not ideal for. Traditional families who want and need yards and quiet streets. Game day traffic, event crowds, and urban density aren't what you want if you're raising young kids and prioritizing space. Anyone on a tight budget, because properties near the grounds are going to command premium pricing. You're paying for proximity and future appreciation. Buyers wanting an established neighborhood feel, well, this is a brand new district that's still being built out and frankly probably will be for quite some time. So if you want mature trees and settled neighbors and decades of history, probably need to look elsewhere. Now let's talk about which neighborhoods to watch. Boston-Thurman sits immediately adjacent to the grounds. This is the neighborhood that borders the 100-acre site, and it's going to see the most direct impact. Both positive, like rising property values and improved infrastructure, and things to consider like potential traffic on game days. Buena Vista and Ardmore are both within a reasonable district. Buena Vista is Winston-Salem's most prestigious neighborhood. It's close enough to benefit from the grounds amenities without dealing with that game day chaos. Ardmore is the city's largest neighborhood. It's about a 5 to 7 minute drive to the grounds, and it already has strong demand because of its walkability and proximity to Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center, Forsyth Novant Medical Center, and Thruway. Properties along Deacon Boulevard are the obvious appreciation play as well. The streets being completely redesigned, narrowed, pedestrianized, and activated. Anything with frontage on Deacon or just off of it is going to see immediate impact as well. And then there's the 1 mile radius around the grounds. This is where you'll see ripple effects. Not dramatic overnight changes, but steady appreciation as the district matures and proves itself. Here's the move if you're adamant on this project. The smart money isn't buying right at the grounds, where pricing already reflects future expectations. The smart money is buying in the neighborhoods just close enough to benefit, but far enough to avoid the game day chaos. So that's Buena Vista and Ardmore, and pockets of Boston-Thurman and areas right around the venue cluster. But those individual property decisions depend on what this means for Winston-Salem as a whole. Let's zoom out. This is bigger than one development. This is about Winston-Salem's identity. The optimistic case looks like this. Wake Forest has always struggled to keep graduates in Winston-Salem after they finish school. There's not enough urban infrastructure or nightlife or walkable neighborhoods to compete with Charlotte's and Raleigh's. The grounds might just change that equation. If you're a 25-year-old Wake Forest grad who wants to stay connected to campus and live in a walkable district with restaurants and entertainment, now you got an option. Restaurants, retail, office space, construction jobs, the grounds creates direct employment, but it also creates secondary effects. More residents means more spending at other businesses. More office workers means more demand for services. If this works, the benefit spreads beyond just the 100-acre footprint. Winston-Salem markets itself as the city of the arts and innovation, with the Innovation Quarter and a strong cultural scene. A successful, well-programmed entertainment district at the grounds reinforces that identity and makes the city, frankly, more attractive to young professionals and companies looking to relocate. The way they're converting parking fields into walkable mixed-use space with creek restoration and greenways and pedestrian infrastructure could become a model for other underutilized corridors in the city. So, here's the pessimistic case. Cannibalization instead of expansion. If the grounds pulls customers away from downtown restaurants and bars without bringing new people to Winston-Salem, it's just redistribution. Some districts win, others might lose, and the net economic benefit, frankly, is minimal. 500 million and 100 acres is significant relative to Winston-Salem's size. If retail lease-up lags, if Creekside struggles to fill units, if the office building sits partially vacant, this becomes a high-profile example of perhaps overbuilding. And that scares future investors away. Deacon Boulevard's getting narrowed from 4 lanes to 2. That's great for walkability, but it concentrates traffic. If parking and traffic management aren't executed well, game day congestion could get worse and affect surrounding neighborhoods, frankly, like Boston Thurmond. The gap between the initial site grant and the final infrastructure budget, plus the additional city and county asks, raises the question of whether taxpayers are getting their money's worth. That depends on actual tax base growth and the secondary economic benefits, which we probably won't know for years. Here's the reality check. Most likely, the outcome is somewhere in the middle. Not a home run, but not a disaster. Success depends on execution, lease-up speed, tenant mix, parking management, year-round activation, and it's going to take probably 3 to 5 years to know if this really worked. Winston-Salem hasn't done much like this, with the exception of the Innovation Quarter, in a really long time. We're either going to look back and say, this is when everything changed, or we're going to say, remember that expensive mistake at Deacon Boulevard? There's really not a lot of middle ground here. Which brings us to what we need to watch. All right, here's what you need to watch to know which way this is going. Retail leases signed before apartments open are a phenomenal green flag. If restaurants and shops are committing to the grounds before Creekside even delivers its first residents, that is confidence in selling. It means tenants believe that foot traffic will be there from day one. National and regional tenants, not just local mom and pops. Local businesses taking risks is nice, but national chains signing leases means their real estate analysts ran the numbers and believe the market can support it. That's a much stronger signal. If those Creekside 229 units fill up fast without heavy concessions or discounts, it tells you student demand is real. Same thing for those 25 condos. They should move relatively quickly if the market's there. If they're sitting unsold or seeing price cuts for 6 months or longer after delivery, that would be a red flag. Now, weekday and non-game day foot traffic. This is a big one. The whole premise of the grounds is year-round activation. So if you're seeing people at the retail village on random Tuesday afternoons within 6 months of opening, this thing is working. Another good sign is if Carter and Front Street are already talking about Phase 2 timelines. Hotel components or additional residential before Phase 1 is even stabilized, well, that would mean internal projections are obviously looking strong. Now, here are the red flags. Retail space sits empty for 6 to 12 months after opening. If you're driving past the grounds a year after it opens and seeing 4 lease signs in the retail village, that's a major problem. It means the market probably couldn't absorb the space. Apartment units offering concessions, if Creekside is advertising free months or gift cards or heavy discounts to attract tenants, that means demand is weaker than projected. Condos sitting unsold or seeing price cuts, same logic. If those 25 units aren't moving, the for sale market isn't there. If this turns into a glorified tailgate lot, only busy on game days, dead the rest of the time, the year-round vision failed. Parking problems causing public complaints are also a big one. If residents in Boston, Thurmond, or Buena Vista, or Sherwood, or any of the surrounding neighborhoods start complaining about game day parking overflow or traffic issues, that affects political support for future phases. And if the Phase 2 timeline keeps getting pushed back, if 2028 comes around and we're still no firm announcement on the next phase, it means Phase 1 didn't hit its benchmarks. If the developers return to the city or county requesting additional subsidies beyond the current $43 million, that's a bad sign as well. It's just the private capital isn't confident enough to move forward alone. So the timeline benchmarks you need to remember: summer of 2027, Phase 1 opens. Watch the initial reception. Are people excited? Are local media outlets covering it positively? Is there buzz? See, fall of 2027, students move into Creekside. Watch occupancy rates. Spring of 2028, the first full year of operation, this is the critical window. Is it busy year-round? Are tenants renewing leases? Are businesses profitable? 2029, Phase 2 announcements. If they're moving forward with the additional phases by 2029, that tells you everything you need to know about Phase 1's success. Here's my take on what to watch. The first 12 to 18 months after opening will tell you everything. If retail is thriving and you're seeing people there on random Tuesdays, this is gonna work. If you're seeing 4 lease signs a year later, you got a problem, and you should pay attention. See, Winston-Salem hasn't done anything at this scale in decades, and the grounds is either going to set the blueprint for future development or become a cautionary tale. The decisions you make today about where to buy will be directly shaped by how this plays out over the next 3 to 5 years. If you're considering buying near the grounds or anywhere in Winston-Salem and you want to talk through the timing and the positioning, please email me at sales@thegintergroup.com today. I'll break down which neighborhoods make sense for your situation, and I've linked my video breaking down the real pros and cons of living in Winston-Salem, covering everything from the weather to traffic to the cost of living and what actually makes this city different. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.